Welcome to equivalent fractions. The aim of today's lesson is to help you to find out what an equivalent fraction is. So the learning objective is actually to work out or find equivalent fractions. There are three success criteria that will help you in doing equivalent fractions. The first is that you can say what an equivalent fraction is. And the second is that you can also multiply a fraction which will have a top number and a bottom number by the same amount. And the third is that you can even divide a fraction by the same amount. There are some key vocabulary I want you to take note of. The first is an equivalent. What equivalent mean? Equivalents are just fractions that are equal. Now, fractions will have numerator. It is normally the top number. And fractions also have denominators. And that is the bottom number. There are some key concepts I want you to take note of. The first is that when you are doing equivalent fractions, there are only two operations you need. You either multiply or divide. The second I want you to take note of is that to keep a fraction balanced, whatever you do to the numerator, you do the same to the denominator. And the third thing I want you to know is that fractions can actually look different, but they represent the same thing. So let's look at this fraction, half. Just as a reminder, the top number here is the numerator, and the bottom number here is the denominator. It is represented in a visual form. Now, if this is pizza and I eat the green part, I have eaten half of the pizza. Now, how do I work out an equivalent fraction of half? To find an equivalent fractions, you can multiply the numerator by any number, and you must multiply the denominator by the same number. So here I've chosen to multiply by 2. So I have to multiply 1 by 2, which is 2, and 2 times 2, which is 4. So 2/4 is equivalent to half. And you can see how it is represented visually. If I eat this green part, if it's pizza, is the same as eating a quarter here and another quarter there. The fraction is still balanced. Now I can write a different equivalent fraction for half. To do this, I can choose another number to multiply by, and this time I've chosen to multiply the numerator and the denominator by 3. So 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 times 3 is 6. So 3/6 is equivalent to a half. And you can see how it is represented visually. Now, if this is pizza and I eat this amount, is the same as if I eat a third, another third, and another third. I've actually eaten a half. And you can see the fraction still balanced. Now, if you are given this fraction 7/10. There are different fractions shown here. Which of these are actually equivalent to 7/10? Now you can see already I have highlighted 14/20 and 21/30. But how did I do that? You come over to my working here. In working number 1, I have written the fraction that was given to me, which is 7/10. Now, I did say you can multiply your numerator and your denominator by the same number. So I've chosen to multiply by 2. So 7 times 2 is 14. 10 times 2 is 20. Now looking at the options given to me, 14/20 is an equivalent fraction. Look at my working number 2 here. This time I'm choosing to multiply my numerator by 3. 7 times 3 is 21. 10 times 3 is 30. So let me again check and see if that fraction is in the options. Yes, 21/30 is equivalent to 7/10. Now, if I were to check if I've got all of my fractions, my equivalent fractions, let me choose to multiply by 4. Now, I can see the denominator here is a 10. So multiplying by 4 should give me a multiple of 10. That would be 40. But there is no 40 here. So that tells me there's no other equivalent fraction. Okay, look at this one. I want you to take some time, pause the video, and find equivalent fractions for 3/8. I will show you how to do it in the next slide. Given the fraction 3/8 here, now to find equivalent fraction, I'll take my 3/8, which I've written here, and first multiply by 2. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 8 times 2 is 16. And I can see it right here. So 6/16 is equivalent to 3/8. Again, if I take my 3/8 as is was given in the question here, now I can choose to now this time multiply by 3. So 3 times 3 is a 9, and 8 times 3 is 24. So 9/24 is one of the options. So 9/24 is equivalent to 3/8. What I now want you is to pause this video and do some exercise. The mild is the easier one. The medium is kind of in between, and the hot will be challenging. When you have done the work, what I want you to do, when you double click this icon here, you will see the work. The first one will be the MS1. Now to get the answer, after working through, scroll to the second page. The answers are there. If you do the medium, scroll to page 3. And after doing the work, scroll to page 4. The answers are there. And the same for hot. Page 5 is where the work is, and then scroll to page 6 for the answers. My advice is, please do not look at the answers before. Do the work first and check the answers. Now, what I want you to take note of is this one. tomorrow you are going to find equivalent fractions using divide. So don't go beyond this page. Thank you. Now, welcome to this second part of finding equivalent fractions. Yesterday you found equivalent fractions by timesing. Today we're finding equivalent fractions by dividing. So the learning objectives are the same as yesterday. Let's move to the next slide. Right. Now this time you are given this fraction 12 over 16. Again, 12 is the numerator, 16 is the denominator. As you can see, they are even numbers, they are bigger numbers. So how will I work out an equivalent fraction that is smaller than this? Remember, when we're doing the timesing, we were timesing the numerator and the denominator. This time we'll be dividing the numerator and the denominator. Now, because they are even numbers, I've chosen to divide by 2. So I'll divide 12 by 2, and 12 divided by 2 is 6. I have to divide the numerator 16 by 2 as well. So 16 divided by 2 will give me 8. So 6/8 is actually equivalent to 12/16. Now, is there another number that can divide these? Yes. Now, 4 can also divide the numerator and denominator. So 12 divided by 4 is actually 3. And 16 divided by 4 is 4. So 3/4 is also equivalent to 12 over 16. Look at this other one, 8 over 10. Here, the numerator is 8, the denominator is 10. Now, I can see that both of them are even numbers, so I can actually divide by 2. So 8 divided by 2 will give me 4. And 10 divided by 2 will give me 5. There's no other number that can divide 8 over 10. So 4 over 5 is equivalent to 8 over 10. Now what I want you to do is, at this time, to pause the video and then go and do the work. Now again, S1 is much easier than medium. Medium is kind of in the middle, not too hard, not too easy. And the hot is challenging. As yesterday, when you double click and get the work, the first page is where the mild is. The second page will be the answers to the mile. The third page is the work for the medium, and the fourth is where the answers are. Likewise, the hot is actually the fifth page, and then the answers are in the sixth page. Please do not look at the answers before doing the work. If not, you will not be helping yourself. Thank you very much. Now, how did you do? Now, if you want to check if you understood what you did, I want you to call a guardian, or maybe if they are busy, a sibling, and show them the steps that you followed to do one of the correct ones and questions. Just as a reflection, now, do you know what an equivalent fraction is? Were you able to find equivalent fractions by multiplying the top number and the bottom number? Were you also able to find equivalent fractions by dividing the top number and the bottom number by the same amount? If you were able to do that, well done. You are an expert in finding equivalent fractions. Well done.